Hello everyone, welcome to the third installment of my lecture on the receptive skills of communication. So before we proceed, let's just have an overview of the four aspects of the receptive skills. We have critical reading, critical viewing, media literacy, and critical listening. In this particular lecture, I will focus my discussion on the media literacy aspect. So, what is media literacy and how do experts define the term media literacy? It refers to the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, and produce communication, both for printed and electronic media. That's according to Aspen Institute National Leadership Conference in 1992. However, if you want a more detailed or more specific description of media literacy, let's take a look at this by New Mexico Media Literacy Project. They define media literacy as the ability to critically consume and create media in order to better understand the complex messages we receive from print, broadcast, and electronic media, especially so that we belong to what we call nowadays as the digital age. So everything is included. Almost everything is included when we talk about media. So let's take a look into the basic concepts of media literacy. First and foremost, it says here that media construct our culture, which is quite evident since what we see, what we hear, or what we view on the media would be a reflection of what's happening in our society. So, be it positive or negative, these are but realities that we are actually having in our community. What else? Media messages affect our thoughts, attitudes, and actions. So, if we take into consideration the communication theory on the silver bullet theory or the hypodermic needle theory, it talks about the powerful influence of media in both conscious and unconscious level in influencing the generally passive audience. Okay? So whether or not we admit it, we get influenced by what media feed us. Next, media use the language of persuasion. So this is quite evident in the field of public relation and advertising, most especially because whether it be a print ad or broadcast ad or electronic ad, we are influenced. And because of these effective advertisements, they in turn affect our purchasing powers as consumers. And then media also construct fantasy worlds. So we can relate this to TV series, or we also have, of course, the film industry and theater productions. In addition, no one tells the whole story. So, this particular concept of media literacy refers to journalism per se, because we do not actually deny the fact that for media practitioners, how they write or how they interpret the news would depend on how they view things. Okay? So whether or not we would want to what's this highlight objectivity, fairness, and of course the non prejudicial point of view when it comes to journalism, we would always have this subjective attack when it comes to interpreting the news. So it's up to the people, to the consumers, to the masses to determine whether or not they should believe a particular report. What else? Media messages reflect the values and viewpoints of people. This is through commentaries, through editorials, and through opinion pieces that we read in newspapers or in social media. Individuals construct their own meanings from media. So, in as much as we empower the media practitioners to look into issues and interpret it in such a way that they would be able to present both sides of the story, we also, consumers, have the power to look into the analysis of things. Okay, so we have the capacity to analyze in terms of how we would make it easier for us to understand certain issues. We can understand further by simplifying things or just by basically agreeing or disagreeing with the issues that we encounter every day through media. And of course, we have media messages can be decoded. So everything can be decoded. It's not only texts, it's not only multimodal texts as what we have discussed previously. Media messages overall can be decoded and be left to our different interpretations. That's why what is nice is we may have differing political views or perceptions about things, but we have to learn how to respect and consider each and everyone's opinions. Now, when we talk about media literacy, we also include here the use of social media, which is beneficial on our behalf because first and foremost, it keeps us connected. Okay, so obviously, no distance is too far when we make use of social media because everyone can be contacted in just one click. What else? It helps us in times of disasters. So, one example here would be the app Google Person Finder. So, it proved its usefulness during times of calamities. And of course, we have citizen journalism. So everyone is empowered already to report things as they happen in our immediate community. So it's not only those who are technically trained to be media practitioners who are empowered to report and update us with what's happening around us. We also have the power because we have everything at the click of our fingers. So one example there will be the use of hashtags, and one recent hashtag which has been top trending would be the hashtag nasaan ang Pangulo. Okay? And of course, we have a lot more. However, we also have social media cons. Like one, for instance, would be phantom vibration syndrome. What is phantom vibration syndrome? It refers to when a person thinks that he or she is being notified by his or her gadget, but in reality, there is no notification or there is no ringing from his or her gadget. Okay, so there's no message or there's no missed calls, but he or she would always glance every now and then to the gadget because of the seemingly paranoia that it is or it is signifying that someone is calling or messaging him or her. So, what are the effects of these? We are stimulated by social media in a not so good manner. Take, for instance, it affects also the quality of our sleep, especially so if we sleep near our gadgets. Okay? So, since it's accessible and we can browse anytime so long as we have internet connection, then our sleep quality and then eventually our overall productivity would be affected. Okay. There's also this misconception that if we are good at using social media, we are good multitaskers as well, which is not true. Okay, so what then happens we become less adept at multitasking because of our divided attention. It's gonna be hard for us to concentrate in one particular task if we do a lot while we do a lot of things while we're doing one thing. Okay, so it is a misconception. However, some would still believe that it is effective. So probably it would be effective on their part, but generally speaking, the concentration level would be affected, would be disrupted. What else? We also have what we call as the FOMO. Gen Z learners would be familiar with this. It stands for the fear of missing out. That's why, as much as possible, they would want to always be online because every now and then their famous celebrities would give updates or their friends would give or post updates, which is again something that would affect the overall productivity of a person. And of course, we have the worst, which is cyberbullying. Because at times, we have seen in some of the news reports in the past that it can lead to incidents of suicide. So, as much as possible, let us not be part of the people who tolerate cyberbullying. So when we talk about cyberbullying, it touches the ethical issues also in the use of social media. Why? Because for one, it gives deeper scars on the part of the victim in terms of the victim's emotional well-being, psychological well-being, and also social well-being. So again, let's beware of the ill effects of cyberbullying. We also have the lack of accountability because there's a tendency that if we are at the height of our anger, we would post something that we don't really mean, okay? And then later on, we will find ourselves deleting such posts when it is already too late. The damage has been done, the post has been read already by a lot of people. So, again, we have to be mindful of what we share in social media. Scoop mentality. It is referring to one's desire to always be the first to know or the first to announce something. However, we have to be very careful when it comes to this. We have to take a look into our references or sources to ensure that what we share are actually authentic or accurate. Because there's a very thin line between sensationalism and inaccurate reporting vis-a-vis being the first to announce or being the first to know. So warning against fake news, as what we label it nowadays, or fake information. We also have identity theft, which is something that we wouldn't want to be victims of. Okay, that's why we have to be very careful when it comes to sharing confidential information in our social media accounts. As much as possible, less is more. We don't give out every information about us because there are some people who would take advantage of such. And then we also have libel, okay? These are actually offenses which are punishable by law. We have cyber libel, and we are guided by that in our country. And then we have illegal access to data. So we have incidents of online phishing, online scamming, and all these stuff. So the bottom line here is we always have to be careful of our transactions that we do online. Okay, so why then do we need to emphasize the need for us to be media literate during this particular point in time? It's because economic forecasters and business analysts are predicting that jobs in the 21st century will require information processing skills, and one of which would be media literacy. Especially so that nowadays everything has suddenly become online. So, going back, merely teaching reading and writing is no longer sufficient. So, if you notice, teachers, professors are also emphasizing the proper use of media and social media among their students so that we would be more mindful and watchful with what we actually share with our social media accounts and the media per se. Actually, former U.S. Secretary of Education Richard Riley also emphasized the need for media literacy. And I quote, our young people need to be educated to the highest standard in this new information age. And surely this includes a clear awareness of how the media influences, shapes, and defines their lives. Also, media literacy courses can give young people the power to recognize the difference between entertainment, television that is just bad, and the information they need to make good decisions. In other words, we have to be socially responsible with how we use media and the social media. Now, we may ask ourselves, why bother? So, if we're not media literate, we cannot understand what the media are doing for us and to us. So, I leave this to your own to ponder on. Okay. Again, if we're not media literate, we can't understand what the media are doing for us and to us. Okay, so perhaps let's have time to reflect on whether or not we are responsible media users. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to my lecture. Please stay tuned for my next lecture on critical listening.